So I grew up in the country, about 10 miles out of a small farming town, what you'd probably call a hick town. We didn't have a big farm, just a couple of orchards, cherry trees, peach trees, and a couple of lower fields where we grew wheat and where my brothers and I used to ride our motorcycles. But my brothers and I all worked for one of the bigger farmers in the area who just happened to be the dad of one of my classmates. Our duties including moving irrigation pipe and sometimes blazing trails through brush and briars. One day my younger brother Darren had to work his way through the brush to turn on an irrigation pump. My other brother and I sat and waited for him in the pickup, and a few minutes later he came running out of the brush, swatting at the air, and there was a swarm of yellow jackets around his head. These guys here. My brother and I ran over to help, and we swatted them away, and we finally got rid of the vicious beasties. But Darren was still shaking his head and brushing his hair and his face. Finally, he put his finger on one nostril and blew, and out came a yellow jacket out of his nose. Oi! Keep in mind that wasps are not bees. This is a bee. Bees are our friends. Wasps are the biggest jerks of the insect world. Strangely enough, though, most people call any bug that flies and has stripes a bee. And that's where we're going to jump off today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Brett, and I'm the Happy Valley Student Life Group Director. Very impressive title, I know. And tonight we're going to be talking about bees. But they're not the bees that I was just describing, and they're not the kind that my brother blew out of his nose. But before we officially get started, I have a question that I want to present to you. How many push-ups can Chuck Norris do? We'll circle back to that at the end. We're going to finish reading through part of Romans chapter 12. In the verses we read tonight, the writer of this book, the Apostle Paul, gives us some guidelines about what we should be. I'm going to read Romans 12 through 16, and I want you to follow along, paying particular attention to the be statements. Rejoice in our confident hope. Be patient in trouble and keep on praying. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Always be eager to practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Don't curse them. Pray that God will bless them. Be happy with those who are happy, and weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with each other. Don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people, and don't think that you know it all. Okay, let's get started and break down the B's. There are 4 B's upon which we would like to focus this evening. Be patient, be ready to help and hospitable, be happy, and don't be proud. First, be patient. Be patient in trouble and keep on praying. It sounds so simple when we say it like this. Something bad happens or you're in a difficult situation and the direction is clear. Be patient and pray. It's easy, right? Well, maybe you're better at this than I am, but when I'm faced with these situations, my first reaction isn't patience. I can usually keep calm on the outside, but inside I'm getting knocked off center. And I'm looking for a solution. I'm looking for something to resolve the situation, to make it better or simply make it go away. I'm looking for help. Now, sometimes that help comes and sometimes it doesn't. The reality is, I know this passage. I've read it, I've studied it, I accept it, and I embrace the truth in it. But in the times when a situation just isn't getting any better, when I'm not seeing the help, I have a hard time holding on to it. But what does Paul tell us? He doesn't just say, be patient and wait it out. He gives us a direction. He says, keep praying. When we pray, we are not just asking God to fix it. We are inviting Him to join us in our trouble. This doesn't always mean the trouble will be fixed the way we hope. But if we can train ourselves to pray in the midst of struggles and to seek God, we can grow through these times. Remember, He's God and we're not. In Isaiah 55:7, the prophet wrote, "My thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, declares the Lord." So first, be patient in trouble, practice patience, and pray. Next, be ready to help. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Be hospitable. This seems pretty simple and straightforward, yes? We should be ready to help. But just who are God's people? Up until the time of Jesus, the Jews believed that they were God's people, the chosen, and this is essentially true. As described in the Old Testament, the people of Israel were God's anointed. But when Jesus came, He made it clear that He came for all people, not just the Jews. This was a new concept for the people of the day, and even the disciples had some trouble with it. Paul's directive to us is that when anyone is in trouble, because anyone qualifies as a child of God, we should be ready to help. Now think about readiness for a moment, because readiness, as Paul is describing it, requires action. Some of you may participate in track, and I think most of you have probably seen the Summer Olympics at some point. Think about the athletes who compete and their levels of readiness. They can hang out in the bleachers until their event gets close. Then they go down and start to warm up. They stretch, they check their shoes, they take off their sweats. All of this is preparation, but they aren't really ready to race until they get to their lane and into their starting blocks, waiting for the gun to go off. That's when they're ready. I think in this passage, Paul is telling us to be ready like this, totally prepared, just waiting to jump in and help. The second part is that we're called to be eager, to be hospitable. We need to have a good attitude about helping people, not just out of obligation. So we're patient, praying, ready to help, and hospitable. Next, we're called to be empathetic. Now, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Paul tells us, be happy with those who are happy and weep with those who weep. He's not telling you just to do things that make you happy. This is him telling you to come alongside other people wherever they may be. When your friends are happy, rejoice with them. If your friend does something cool, celebrate. Tell them you're proud of them. When your friends are going through something hard, be with them then too. This is not easy for most of us. Being around people who are going through difficult or even tragic circumstances or emotional circumstances is awkward and uncomfortable, but it's crucial that we do it. If I might offer some words of advice on this topic, because of my stage of life, I've been on both sides of this situation a number of times. If your friend is suffering, you don't need to say anything, just be there. When Jesus was praying in the garden on the night before his death, he simply asked his disciples to stand watch. He didn't need their advice. He didn't need their words. He simply needed their presence. This is something we can all do. When your friend is in pain or suffering, stand watch. Be present. We are called to do life together, and that includes the good, the bad, and the ugly. And lastly, don't be proud. Let's clarify what Paul means here. He isn't talking about the feeling of pride that you might have when you've performed a task well, or the pride a parent may feel in their children. The pride of which Paul speaks is arrogance. It's conceit. It's an attitude of self-importance. These are not positive character traits. The difficulty with pride is that so much of our culture is built around it. As a society, we encourage feelings of pride in accomplishments, pride in material success, pride in performance, and pride that we're Americans. Even a cursory study of history will show you that pride doesn't typically lead to good outcomes, either on an individual or a national level. And if you pay attention to the words and deeds of Jesus, he had little patience for the proud. So where do we land with all this? Let's read our passage one more time, so follow along with me. Rejoice in our confident hope, be patient in trouble, and keep on praying. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Always be eager to practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you. Don't curse them. Pray that God will bless them. Be happy with those who are happy, and weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with each other. Don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people, and don't think you know it all. So let me leave you with this. Be patient and pray. Look for opportunities to help. Celebrate and stand watch, and embrace the humility of Jesus. Have a good discussion this evening, but before we go, I posed a question to you at the beginning. How many push-ups can Chuck Norris do? The answer? All of them.